time in your life where you saw something and thought, that's just not possible? Or maybe you've seen somebody else's idea and thought, whatever, definitely not. Possibly it's been your idea, and you've just put it to one side because you thought, just not achievable. I'm Deenita Pattni. I'm a speaker, author, trainer, and I have a mission to help people become the authority online. So just come back with me down memory lane, and let's look at a few individuals who also were considered authorities in what they did. The printing press was invented in 1439 by Johannes Gutenberg, and he absolutely revolutionized knowledge and know-how. The Wright brothers, they had the idea of putting people into a piece of metal, today aeroplanes. Thomas Edison created electricity, a resource that runs the world. There are so many inventors like that who actually became authorities in what they did. And if you're like me, well, if you watch Knight Rider and you thought all those years ago, a car that drives itself, well, somehow Elon Musk did believe, and Tesla was born. So what have all of these inventors got in common? Well, they're all men. But before you get excited, men, let's look at a few more. The dishwasher, created and invented by Josephine Cochrane. The ice cream maker, Nancy Johnson. Disposable diapers, Marion Donovan. Now, what have all these inventors got in common? Now, before you say women, obviously that's the obvious answer. But they were obviously useful, weren't they, those inventions? But that's not really what I'm trying to say here. Well, of course they were useful because they got ladies out of the kitchen. But the truth is that it doesn't matter what women or men do, because actually women inventions went way beyond the kitchen. Steel staircases, CCTV, fire escapes, the computer, all of these inventions were by women. The Kevlar fiber, the fiber that's used in bulletproof vests, and the lift raft. The lift raft went to save millions at sea. These were all women inventions. But the point I'm trying to make here is it doesn't matter whether you are a woman or a man. When you actually step into your brilliance, you can actually be anything that you want to. So what is it? What is it about these people, these individuals, that makes them pursue their ideas? What is it that differentiates these inventors from those who actually sit on their ideas and don't bring them to the forefront? Well, there is only one word that separates all of them. This one word, if you embrace, will actually stunt your ambition, your intention, your mission. If you actually own this word, it'll stop you from innovating, and it'll keep you on the path of mediocrity. This one word actually stops you from shining boldly and brilliantly. And that one word is the word realistic. That's right, realistic. Can you imagine what would have happened with these inventors that we've talked about? What would have happened to them if they thought, oh, God, you know what, I'll wait till my idea sounds a little bit more realistic? What would have happened if they had never, ever pursued that dream, that thought? Because here's something I want you to think about. Every single invention, every great invention was once a single thought. But the only difference was a person who thought of that idea, what they did was they actually had no shadow of a doubt that it would work. And that's what separates these inventors from those of you who hold on to your ideas and sit on them, waiting for realism to kick in. So I did a little bit more research. I thought, why is it? Why is it that these those people with ideas wait to be realistic. And I realized that actually realism wasn't the key thing. It was what was underneath it. Realism was just a symptom. Being realistic was just a symptom, and what was happening was something underneath. There was a little bit more that stopped them from pursuing their idea, from getting into the forefront. And that's what I'm here to share with you today. I'm here to share with you the areas, the key structures, the key things that you need to know that will stop you from keeping your idea and sitting on it. Would you like to know what they are, yes or no? Yes. So let's kick off with number one. You see, what stops people from being realistic is a key element. Let me ask you a question. What does being perfect feel like? Now, as you mull over that question, let me tell you what it feels like for me. That's right. I have no freaking idea. But I do know what striving for perfection feels like. It's like where you're running fast and getting nowhere. And when you realize that the destination you tried to get to hasn't even arrived, you get off and realize you're on a treadmill. And you turn it off and you say, tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. Your life becomes a to-do list, only nothing ever gets ticked off. It just continues. You see, I don't ever want to know what perfection feels like, because that would mean I never tried. It would mean I never ever pursued myself. It would mean that I never ever challenged myself. Perfection does not exist, ladies and gentlemen. It does not exist. And the sad thing is that often throughout industries, this is a prevalent challenge that is present. It is a challenge that is there all the time. Hewlett-Packard did an internal survey, and they found out that actually when applying for jobs, when looking at the job description, when women applied for jobs, they would only apply for it if they 100% matched the job description. Whereas men, they would look at that same job description and apply for it if they matched it 60%. Ladies and gents, these are real figures, 60 versus 100, which means in essence, women had to wait until they had the whole role and were absolutely perfect for that role. You see, they waited to be perfect. They waited to be perfect. What idea are you still sitting on because you're waiting to be perfect? And the truth is that perfection doesn't exist. Look, even Apple, they actually have made billions from releasing software that is imperfect, by the way. And they've made billions from releasing that particular software to their devices. So how many millions or potentially billions are you leaving behind because you're waiting for realism to kick in? That leads us on to the next bit. The next part is exactly why we strive for perfection in the first place. What is it about the word perfection that makes us stick to it? Is it because it's a fear of the unknown, being wrong, maybe being judged? Any one of those feelings keeps us striving for perfection. But here's the interesting thing. You have to do the one thing that you absolutely are fearful of to get rid of the need to be perfect. You have to embrace failure. You see, it's been said many a times that failing your way to success is the only way forward. I mean, let's look at some of these inventors. Did you know that Tom Edison tried to create the light bulb 10,000 times before he got it right? And actually, the Wright brothers, on their third attempt to fly their glider, it only lasted 59 seconds. Thank God it doesn't last 59 seconds now. We'd have a little bit of a problem. You see, failure, again, is something that you have to embrace. As J.K. Rowling says, that it is inevitable to live without failure. Everyone has to fail, unless you've lived a life so cautiously that you've never failed, in which case you failed by default. So you must embrace failure, because really the way to do it is to realize that actually you have to embrace failure in a different way. Look at it differently. Have a different perspective on what failure means. See, Thomas Edison said that actually what he didn't say was, what Thomas Edison said was, when he failed 10,000 times, he didn't think of it as failure. He just realized that were 10,000 ways that it was the wrong way to do it. 10,000 ways that he didn't get it right, which meant he was now one step closer to the answer. So there is no such thing as failure. There's only feedback, and you've got to take that feedback on. And that then leads us to the third thing. Because the truth is that when you are striving for perfection, it's because you have a fear of failure. But that really leads to this third thing, which is absolutely key. Because in order to drop your fear of failure, you have to do the one thing that you actually are most afraid of. And that's stepping into the limelight and being bold. You have to be bold at what you're brilliant at. Start to tell people about your successes, your achievements, and actually tell the world exactly how brilliant you are. Because why is it that you tend to be bold and brilliant about other people's successes? So you see, the one thing that you need to do in order to be bold is you have to brag. Oh my gosh, I see a little bit of a gasp going on here. Yes, you have to brag. You have to brag about everything that you are brilliant at. Because isn't it true? You brag about your children's successes. You brag about your other halves. You might even brag about your siblings, your family. My God, you brag about famous people's successes. But you never, ever brag about your own. It's time to put yourself at the forefront. It's time to put yourself forward. I worked with a client, and I was helping her trying to become the authority online. Barbara was her name. She was a regal version of Shirley Bassey, and very well spoken. And she was telling me about her successes. She was telling me she was a CEO, she was on the board of directors, she had built her own business, and then in passing, she was like, oh, and I've also got an OBE. What? An OBE? Barbara, why are you telling me this now? Well, Dee, I'm nothing special. And also, I was brought up to be humble. I mean, I didn't even think I deserved it. Oh, I don't think the Queen would somehow give you an OBE if you didn't deserve it. You see, Barbara had actually got an OBE in social and economic regeneration. But it's so true, isn't it? You see, as children, we were told to speak when spoken to. We were told to be quiet. We were told to be humble. We were told not to show off and only speak when you are spoken to. Children should be seen but not heard. Yet we have somehow taken that into our adulthood. You see, it's time to drop that. It's time to unmute your voice. Unmute your voice and tell people how amazingly successful you are. How amazing you are. And the way to do this, because it's easier said than done, right? The way to do this is actually, I'd like you to think about all the brilliant things you've done in your life. Make a list. Actually make a list of everything that you're absolutely fabulous at. And then I want you to find somebody, not somebody you're related to, but I want you to find somebody and tell them, stand tall and tell them exactly what you've achieved. In fact, I challenge you to at least put one thing online, whether it's a video or a post, and put yourself out there. Tell people how fabulous you are. Because the truth is, when you adopt the word realistic, all it's doing is giving you an excuse for staying where you are, for staying in that place hidden. But let me ask you a question. What if you remain the biggest secret? What if nobody knows anything about you? Is that what you want as your life? So you may think that, Well, okay, all of these three areas, why have you connected it to the word realistic? Well, the truth is that when you decide to stay realistic, the switch goes off in your head. It basically turns off. And it gives you the excuse that, okay, well, if I turn it off, then I'll never have to take the risk. That way, I won't be judged, I won't ever fail. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to turn that switch on today. It's time to turn it on today so that you can become the person that you were truly born to be. You were truly born to be. So I'd like you to do this particular one thing. Because the truth is, what ideas have you got that you are still sat on? What ideas have you thought about and hidden away because, well, they're just not realistic? I'd like you to make a list this evening when you go home. Make a list of all the ideas that you've got. Make a list and look at that list. And next to the one that sounds the most unrealistic, I'd like you to put a gold star next to that one. And then I'd like you to put one action point, just one action point, that you will take so that you can take that idea one step closer to reality. Because the truth is that you need to innovate yourself out of mediocrity. You need to put yourself in the limelight. And let me just add one thing here. What do I mean by mediocrity? Well, look, mediocrity either means that it's a mediocre or an average life. And if that's what you like and you want, that is absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong in that. Here I'm talking about the people who actually stay mediocre because they're too afraid to step into their boldness and brilliance. Those are the people I'm talking about because they're too afraid. So they're too afraid and they hold themselves back. So I want you to put yourself out there. You see, it's Will Smith that said, realistic is the common path to mediocrity. Well, here's what I'd like to say to you today. It's time to change your path. It's time to innovate yourself out of mediocrity. It's time for you to be bold and brilliant. Thank you.